After 25 years of marriage, Fred thought he had it all. A loving wife, a successful career, and a daughter about to launch her life. But when he starts suspecting his wife's odd behavior isn't just menopause, he uncovers a betrayal so shocking it shatters everything. What follows is a legal, emotional, and deeply personal journey of heartbreak, strategy, and ultimate redemption. I used to think I had a pretty solid life, a steady job, a good home, and a wife I genuinely loved. Wilma and I met during our last year of college in Virginia. She was quiet, intelligent, and always the most grounded person in the room. Back then, I wasn't chasing anything serious, but Wilma, she made everything feel easy and right. We started dating after a few group projects turned into late-night talks. Before long, we were inseparable. After graduation, we stayed in Richmond. I went into retail management. She joined the city's code enforcement department. We got married, bought a house, and a few years later, our daughter Nancy was born. Wilma took time off to raise Nancy, then returned to work when our daughter started school. We shared the typical ups and downs, but we had what I thought was a real partnership. We split responsibilities. She handled the house, I paid the bills. We talked about everything, made joint decisions, and most importantly, we respected each other. After 25 years together, I thought I knew her. Really knew her. With Nancy finishing college and preparing for her first job in Washington, D.C., Wilma and I were supposed to be entering a new phase. A quieter house, more time for ourselves. I even started planning little date nights to rekindle some of the spark that had naturally dimmed over the years. It felt like the right time to reconnect. But Wilma wasn't as interested. At first, I blamed it on stress. Her department had gone through some restructuring, and she'd recently mentioned longer days at the office. She also brought up menopause a few times. I didn't press it. I figured, give her space. Things will balance out. Still, I couldn't ignore the shift. She became distant. Not hostile, just disconnected. Our conversations got shorter. Her laugh didn't come as easily. She started going to bed early. Sometimes she'd already be asleep before I even turned off the game. Romance went from occasional to rare. She chalked it up to hormones and exhaustion. But I've always been more observant than people realize. Wilma started keeping her phone with her constantly. She changed the password on her laptop, something she'd never done before. She said she was being cautious because of city files, but something about it didn't sit right. Then came the little signs. New lingerie I didn't recognize. Receipts for lunches I hadn't heard about. Changes in her routine that didn't make sense. I didn't want to believe anything was wrong. I trusted her. We had a history, a family, and a shared life. But doubt has a way of creeping in slowly, like water under a door. You keep telling yourself it's nothing until you're standing ankle deep in it. It all came to a head when I had to go out of town for a week in October. Normally, Wilma would complain about my business trips. This time, she barely reacted. "Have fun," she said. No smile, no kiss goodbye. Just a strange look I couldn't place. I called her friend Beth, just casual checking in. Beth didn't mention anything unusual, but when I reached out to one of Wilma's coworkers, Sally, I finally got a name. Barney. He was the new department manager, ex-football player. Tall, confident, unmarried, mid-30s. Sally mentioned he and Wilma had been going to lunch once a week. She said it casually, but my gut turned. Wilma never mentioned Barney. Not once. That weekend before my flight, I noticed more things. She left for shopping, dressed a bit more carefully than usual. Her mood lifted when she was leaving, dropped when she got home. I even drove past Barney's house, pure instinct. There was a car with North Carolina plates in the driveway. He was new to town, it matched. Back at home, I did laundry and found new underwear I'd never seen before. Red, lace, tags still fresh. Not my style. Definitely not something she wore for me. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I wasn't blind. Before I left for the airport, I asked Wilma directly, "Is everything okay between us?" She looked right at me and said, "Everything's fine." That was the last time I believed her. The business trip to Chicago should have been a welcome break. Instead, I spent every night staring at the hotel ceiling, playing Wilma's recent behavior over and over in my head. My phone stayed silent. No calls, no texts. From the woman who used to message me about what she made for dinner. Now, nothing. By midweek, I wasn't wondering if something was wrong. I was certain. I called our daughter, Nancy. She had just wrapped up midterms and was excited about her new job in D.C. I asked her, gently, if she'd noticed anything different about her mom lately. She seems distracted, Nancy said. Quieter. I thought maybe it was menopause stuff. I asked her to check in on her, subtly. She agreed. I didn't want Nancy dragged into this, but I needed someone on the inside. Back at the hotel, I reviewed everything. The deleted emails, the new underwear, the way she brushed me off before I left. And most of all, Barney. I couldn't shake the image of him. Taller, younger, confident, with no attachments. A guy who didn't see Wilma as a wife, a mother, or someone with a 25-year history. Just another challenge. Thursday morning, I got a call from Tom, my neighbor. He was the kind of guy who always noticed what was going on. Who was home, which cars didn't belong, who left their trash bins out too long. I had asked him casually before I left to keep an eye on the house. Well, Fred, he said, there's been a silver Lexus parked in your driveway overnight for the past few days. North Carolina plates. Tall guy picking Wilma up and dropping her off. Last night, he stayed over. I felt like the air had been sucked out of my chest. Tom offered to send photos. I told him to do it, and I thanked him. That evening, I sat in a conference room pretending to care about quarterly projections while my marriage was burning behind my back. I booked an early return flight for Friday instead of Sunday. I didn't tell Wilma. When I landed Friday night, I didn't go straight home. I stopped by Tom's house. He showed me the photos, grainy but clear. Barney, relaxed, casual, kissing Wilma on the cheek as she got into the car. Another one of them walking into our house laughing. She brought him into our home. I parked a few streets away and approached the house quietly just after 9 p.m. The lights were on. The curtains, partially open. Inside, Wilma was sitting close to Barney on the couch, her head resting on his shoulder. I stood still, watching through the window. Then he kissed her. Not a peck. Something more. Tom, standing back with his phone, snapped photos. I nodded. It was enough. I didn't knock. I used my key and entered through the back door, quietly. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, listening. Their laughter drifted down the hallway, then footsteps upstairs. I followed. The bedroom door was cracked open. There she was, in the red lingerie I'd found earlier. Barney stood beside her, half undressed, laughing about something I didn't want to understand. Wilma turned and saw me. Her face collapsed. Pure panic. Barney spun around, startled. Then bizarrely he laughed. Well, well, he said. The husband shows up. I didn't shout, didn't swing. I kept my voice calm. You two finished? Wilma backed away. Barney shrugged, smug. Look, man. No, I interrupted. Don't speak. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Smile. You're on camera. Barney went pale. Wilma started to cry. Get dressed, I said. Both of you, and get out. Barney tried to puff up again. This isn't what it looks like. I've got 4 days' worth of surveillance that says otherwise. He hesitated, then reached for his clothes. Wilma stood frozen, hands shaking. You, I said to her, we'll talk later. You, Barney, get out. And if you so much as breathe near my house again, the footage goes to your HR department, your gym, your church, wherever it'll hurt most. Barney left without another word. I walked downstairs, poured myself a coffee, and waited. Wilma came down a few minutes later, wearing a robe, eyes red, lips trembling. Fred, she said softly, don't. I wasn't ready for her apologies. I didn't want excuses. I just wanted space. I told her I'd be moving out, that I'd already spoken to an attorney, that she could keep the house for now. I'd handle the bills until we figured it out. Wilma begged me not to leave. She said it was a mistake, said Barney didn't mean anything, that it was the thrill of something new, not love. I was lonely, she said. You were always working. We barely talked anymore. I nodded. So you slept with someone instead of telling me we had a problem. She started to cry again, harder this time. I didn't comfort her. I had done that for 25 years. I spent that first night back at a motel near the interstate. The room smelled like cleaning products and cigarette smoke. but it was better than being in the same house with Wilma. I couldn't look at her. Not after what I saw. Not after everything I'd worked for had been dragged into the dirt. By Monday, I had already moved most of my clothes out. Told the store manager I needed some personal time. He didn't ask questions. He'd seen this look on a few too many coworkers' faces before. Wilma tried calling, texting, even emailing. I ignored it all. There was nothing to say. She had made her choice. But I wasn't done yet. I called my lawyer and told him to start drawing up separation papers. We didn't have complicated finances, and Nancy's college was already paid for. A 50-50th split would be clean. I also asked about moving out of state. He said if I got a job offer, it wouldn't be an issue. So I called my regional manager and asked about transfers. A store in Savannah might open up early next year. Bigger role, better salary, clean break. That night I called Tom again. I need a favor, I said. One more. He agreed without hesitation. The next morning I gave him a spare key to the house and asked him to watch for Barney. If Wilma was still seeing him after our confrontation, I needed to know. A few days later, Tom called. He was back, dropped off around 6 p.m. yesterday, left after midnight. I thanked him and hung up. So much for remorse. I hired a private investigator named Phil. Clean record, highly rated, not cheap. I told him everything. What I suspected, what I'd seen, what I needed. He agreed to follow Wilma discreetly for the next week. Meanwhile, Wilma kept up the charade. She left voicemails about how sorry she was. She said she wanted to fix things, that Barney was out of her life, that she hadn't spoken to him since the night I caught them. I didn't believe a word. Then came Thanksgiving. Nancy was coming home for the holiday. Wilma invited me to dinner like nothing had happened. You should be there, she said on the phone. For Nancy. I told her no, I wouldn't pretend. Not for anyone. Nancy called later, asking why I wasn't coming. Because your mom betrayed me, I said, and I can't sit at the table like everything's fine. She didn't press further. She was hurt but understood. I promised to spend time with her that weekend instead. Thanksgiving Day, I ate a microwave meal alone in my motel room while families gathered around the country. My phone buzzed a few times. Wilma, Nancy, her mother, but I didn't answer. Not until Nancy texted, "Can I come over?" Of course, I said yes. She arrived late in the afternoon. We sat on the edge of the bed, eating fast food and talking. She didn't know all the details, but she knew enough. She told me Wilma had cried through most of dinner and that people were asking questions. Her mom had admitted to a mistake, but hadn't said who or what. I just want you both to be happy, Nancy said. I don't think we can be happy together anymore, I told her. She nodded sadly. I figured. That night, Phil called with an update. Wilma had gone to Barney's house 3 times that week. On one visit, she stayed for nearly 4 hours. No public affection, no obvious signs, but it didn't take much imagination. Friday came. I worked a 12-hour shift for Black Friday chaos and returned to the motel ready to crash. I had a dozen missed calls. One was from Phil. She's there now, he said. Barney's place. Pizza delivery just arrived. Looks like a night in. I stared at the ceiling. No anger this time, just exhaustion. An hour later, I called Wilma. She didn't answer. I left a voicemail. Enjoy the pizza. Tell Barney I said hello. She called back 10 minutes later, panicked. What are you talking about? You're at his house. Again. I told you this was your last chance. Fred, I swear, nothing's happening. We were just talking. You've said that before. She tried to backpedal. I ended the call. The next morning, I met with my attorney to finalize the paperwork. Everything was in place. All I had to do was sign. Then I called Nancy. It's over, I told her. Your mom made her choice. I'm making mine. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She just said, I understand. Later that day, Phil sent me photos. Wilma and Barney sitting on his couch, side by side, not kissing, not holding hands, but close, too close, for someone who swore she was done. That night, Wilma texted again. I love you. I miss you. Can we please talk? I didn't reply. Barney had won, or at least he thought he did. But I wasn't playing anymore. The Monday after Thanksgiving, I packed my last suitcase, left the motel, and moved into a short-term rental closer to work. It was temporary, just until the transfer came through. I wanted out of Richmond, out of the neighborhood, out of the shadow Wilma had cast over our marriage. I didn't tell her I'd moved. She found out when she came home to a mostly empty closet and a forwarded mail slip. That day, I also gave the signed separation papers to my attorney. He would send them to Wilma that week. When she received them, she called me 10 times in one day. I ignored each call. Then came the text. Please talk to me. We can fix this. I made a huge mistake. Mistake, that word again. Like she forgot the deliberate choices she made. 5, 6, 7 times. A mistake doesn't have repeat appointments and sleepovers. Nancy called too. She said her mom was falling apart, hadn't been eating, barely left the house. I listened, but I didn't waver. I told her I was moving on, and I meant it. A week later, my attorney confirmed Wilma hadn't signed anything yet. She said she wasn't ready. She hoped we could reconcile. I told him to give her a deadline. Meanwhile, work kept me busy. December in retail means nonstop chaos, and for once, I was grateful. Long shifts gave me something to focus on. Something that wasn't Wilma. Something that wasn't betrayal. Then I got the news. The Savannah transfer was official. I'd be managing the store there by January 15th. Finally, an exit. I told Nancy in person. She was sad but supportive. I get it, Dad, she said. You need peace. I asked her to keep it quiet until I figured out logistics. I didn't want Wilma trying to sabotage the move. Back at the house, Wilma started acting like we were reconciling, even though I hadn't stepped foot there since Thanksgiving. She texted me updates like we were still married, what she was cooking, what bills she'd paid, how her day went. Then came the Christmas party. Every year, her department held a formal event. For 20 years, I'd gone with her, wearing a suit, shaking hands, pretending I cared about municipal politics. This year, she asked me to go again. It's important for my job, she said. People expect us to show up as a couple. I told her I wasn't interested. She begged, said she'd been seeing a counselor, that she was working on herself, that this would help her save face. Against my better judgment, I said I'd consider it. But first I called Phil again. I asked him to follow Wilma for another week, especially the night of the party. He agreed. Wilma sent me a message the night before. I'm so excited to see you tomorrow. I got a new dress. You're going to love it. I didn't respond. The next night, while I was still at the store closing up, Phil called. She's at Barney's house again. Got there around 5:30. Pizza delivery came an hour later. Still there now. No sign she's going anywhere. I didn't call. I didn't need to. Around 9:30, she texted, "Where are you? Are you still coming?" I replied, "No. Tell Barney I said hi." She didn't reply. The next morning, Phil sent photos. Barney and Wilma sitting close on the couch, eating pizza. No kissing, no touching. But too familiar for two people who were supposedly done with each other. That was it. I called my lawyer. File the divorce, no more delays. He said the papers were ready. All he needed was Wilma's signature. When she received them, she didn't call right away. A few days passed, then Nancy called. She's crying all the time, Nancy said. She said she thought you'd forgive her eventually. She kept seeing him, Nancy, I said, even after everything. I know, she whispered. She told me. Eventually, Wilma called. I don't want a divorce, she said through tears. I still love you. If that were true, I said, you'd have stopped seeing him. She tried to defend herself, said she just needed closure. That Barney had been a mistake, but also a distraction from how lonely she felt. I cut her off. I'm moving to Savannah. This is over. She broke down. A week later, Nancy told me her mom had finally signed the papers, but hadn't sent them back yet. She just stares at them, Nancy said. She keeps saying she ruined everything. I told Nancy the truth. She did. By the time the divorce was finalized, the new year had already started, and I was packing for Savannah. The move wasn't just about leaving Richmond. It was about ending a chapter of my life that no longer served me. I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace, and I couldn't find it in the same city, surrounded by reminders of what I'd lost. Nancy came to help me load the truck. We spent the weekend sorting boxes, going through old photos, and saying goodbye. Before she left, she hugged me for a long time. I'm proud of you, Dad, she said. You didn't let this destroy you. I smiled. It almost did, but almost isn't enough to stop me. She cried. I did too. In Savannah, things were quieter. I found an apartment 5 minutes from the store, made new friends, took long walks after work. For the first time in decades, I lived alone, but not in loneliness. There's a difference. Nancy called often. She was engaged by spring and married that fall. Her husband, Mark, was a good man, honest, hardworking, steady. I gave her away at the wedding with a clear heart. I'm happy, she told me, but I'm scared too. That's normal, I said. But if you build it on trust and you protect that trust like it's the most valuable thing you have, you'll be okay. She nodded. Like you tried to. Exactly. As for Wilma, she never remarried. She stayed in Richmond for a while, sold the house, and moved into a condo near her mother. Occasionally, I'd hear things through Nancy. Wilma had started seeing a therapist regularly, stopped attending office functions, and pulled away from most of her social circle. Barney didn't last much longer at her job. A few months after our divorce, he was forced out following complaints from multiple women. One of them was married. One filed a formal complaint. Wilma testified during the investigation. According to Nancy, she cried afterward, saying she should have seen the signs. By then, I no longer cared. Wilma wrote me a letter after the divorce was finalized. 5 pages. She apologized for everything, said she had let impulse override reason, that she had never stopped loving me, and that she didn't expect forgiveness, only wanted me to know she was sorry. I read it once, folded it, filed it away. Not to save it, but to remind myself of where I'd been. She reached out a few more times, texted on our anniversary, on my birthday, even on what would have been our 30th year together. I responded only once. I don't hate you, I just don't want you back. That ended it. 2 years passed. Now I wake up each morning without that weight in my chest. I've started dating again, slowly. I'm not in a rush. I've met women with kind eyes and honest hearts. And when I go out, I don't wonder who's lying to me. I don't worry about deleted messages or changed passwords. Because I learned something the hard way. A marriage doesn't end with a single betrayal. It ends when someone decides to stop protecting the bond that holds it together. Wilma didn't just betray me with her body. She let go of us long before Barney came around. But I didn't. I tried. I fought. I offered chances. I stayed kind when I could have been cruel. And that's why I sleep soundly at night. This wasn't the life I planned, but it's the one I rebuilt. And sometimes that's even better.